Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm going to take a stab at talking about this recent The Hood situation in Marvel Contest of Champions. First off, do want to just apologize. I'm getting over a cold still, so my voice is probably even more in the basement than it normally is, but if you can deal with that, hopefully you can get a little bit of my perspective on this issue. So you've probably seen some thumbnails, some Reddit posts, some things all over the place, maybe on the forums, talking about the fact that, Hood was supposedly not buffed this month, as it said, and that he received a silent nerf. And, I wanted to start off by saying everybody is open to their own opinion, obviously, and, the discord that we have between each other is how we make communication in this game better. So anybody who's voiced their opinion on the forums in a respectful way, I have your back, and I think that is your prerogative to do so. What I kind of want to do though is give you my perspective, because I am a pretty proficient Hood user. I'm not one of the best Hood players in the game, but I have had him ranked at rank 3 for a very long time. I use him very often in Battlegrounds. And also, as being a member of the CCP, I do get to see some things behind the scenes that other people may not have, and I think it helps provide a little bit of insight onto what actually is going on here. So anyway, let's just explain first of all what got fixed, right? In the patch notes, there was a quick note that said Crossbones, Civil Warrior, and the Hood were having their dash back mechanic fixed. Now, this is a pretty easy to understand problem if you've ever played with any of these champions. They had this weird thing where, let's say you dash back and hold block, that's a very important part of all their kits, and then let's say the opponent rushes at you and throws a heavy, so you have to dash back again before your timer hits. Then on that second dash back, you did not get the countdown timer, which meant you had to dash back a third time. And basically it led to a situation where you couldn't reliably just, dash back and hold block and get the effect that you needed to happen. It could extend the length of the match. It could get you backed up and into a little bit of trouble. And it was something that I think a lot of people brought up and complained about and thought was a bug and wanted it fixed for a very long time. I think this is a pretty widespread issue for a lot of people using these champions, and everyone agreed that if it was fixed, these champions would be better. You look at a champion like Falcon, who also has a dash back and hold block component to his kit, and his works properly. No matter where you are on the screen, all you got to do is dash back and hold block, and you're good to go. You don't have to do that weird double clutch thing with Hood, which I said, makes it a little bit more clunky to use these types of champions. So that was the thing that over time, has been looked at by Kabam, trying to find the erroneous code to fix it. Somebody writes the code for the fix, they play test it, it goes through other departments, quality assurance looks at it, balance department looks at it. It's like this whole process. Anytime there's a bug, unless if there's a bug that's gonna break the game tomorrow and they have to expedite it, most of the time these bug fixes do take a very long time because, it's such a multi-headed monster in Kabam that they have to go through all the proper channels to get it fixed, right? So I'm sure this was in the works for a while, and they finally got the fix out, and it's a big improvement. It's a big improvement to all these characters. Now, something else changed, and I don't want to sit here and gaslight people that this didn't change, because it absolutely did, but there's some confusion about it. So what is this permanent invisibility that so many people are talking about? Well, let's look at his abilities, right? So where it says dash back and hold block for 1.2 seconds, it says he can go invisible. He gets this 8-second buff and with a 6-second cooldown. Now, also, if you scroll down to where it says special 2, at the end of the special 2, he goes invisible. And what people were able to do, and I did make a video on this, by the way, about a year ago, is you activate your manual invisibility, then you throw a special 2, and then at that point you have the cooldown from the manual one and the buff from the special 2 one at the same time. But since the cooldown timer is only 6 seconds versus the 8 seconds invisible buff, you were actually able to hold block one more time during that little 2-second overlap and get a new invisible. Now, it's a little sketchy in the description whether this is intended or not. Like, depending on how you read it, it could go either way, right? And that's why when I made a video on this a year ago, I said, I understand how this works. I will use it on occasion, but that I am a little concerned that it would stay in the game. I also said, they've already touched Hood a bunch, so I don't really see any changes coming to him. So I was wrong there, because they did end up fixing this and the dashback problem. But where it gets a little sketchy is the dashback invisibility has a cooldown. And then for the special 2, it doesn't say anything about a cooldown, but I would argue that it's sort of implied, right? Because invisible is a state that you're in. It's described in that block where it says the 1.2 second dashback. So you would think that the rules of the special 2 invisibility are the same, but the only difference is the language on the special 2 invisibility says, after throwing the special 2, go invisible. And that part is unconditional, and that part wasn't changed. So the biggest thing about his kit is that you can basically spam special 2s, which isn't that hard when he's max sig and he gets the power steal, or if you're running Mystic Dispersion in a favorable matchup, it's pretty easy to get back-to-back special 2s so that you still do get a sort of permanent invisible. It's just this way of doing it manually is no longer there. So I hope that makes sense. And, the other thing I want to say is, like, I believe that only a very small portion of the community were playing Hood in a way where this permanent invisible was like their main goal. And they were so proficient at Hood that they were able to like keep track of everything else in the fight and also make this work. I do want to shout out somebody with a channel. His name is JMX. He's definitely a friend of this channel, and I'm a friend of his channel. I think he puts out some really good Hood content. He was also one of the more vocal people about Kabam's communication on this whole issue and how, it should have been communicated. So, again, like, totally respect your opinion, man. But even since that moment, JMX has been making a series of videos proving that Hood is still absolutely incredible with this fix. And I would even argue he's even better, because for me, that dashback problem that was the core of this fix was the thing that was more annoying and more limiting for him, right? So, if you check out some of JMX's most recent videos, he has a new guide for how to do a special 2 spam so that you basically get permanent invisible again. And he talks about this very frankly. Like, he obviously misses it, but if you're a good Hood player, he still has so much to offer, and he's one of the best champions in the game. So, what happened here, right? Was this like some major faux pas? Was this some going behind our backs and lying thing? Honestly, what I think happened was Kabam was going to fix this dashback problem by changing code, and then as a knock-on effect, this permanent invisible went away. It wasn't this situation of like, ooh, let's fix these 2 things about Hood, but we'll only tell the community about the one that benefits them so that we can hide this silent nerf. Like, I can tell you for a fact, they don't do that. That's not how things work over there. It absolutely makes sense to me that the code for the dashback bug that was clear is somehow interrelated to this permanent invisible, and the designer for Hood also apparently agreed, because Jax responded that, that permanent invisible wasn't supposed to work that way. I just feel like not that many people were relying on this ability to play Hood effectively. Like, aside from JMX and myself, I don't think many people even made videos on this. And then, the other thing is I wanted to kind of check myself, right? Because, when you're in the CCP, you have a broader view of things, and sometimes we can be biased toward Kabam. So I asked 2 of who I consider the best Hood players in the game, MU8's Bryce from SSX1, one of the earliest people with a rank 4 Hood, and just he gets this character and is so proficient with this character. And then also Super Sam from 4 Loki. He actually just kicked my butt in Vegas tournament, and ironically, the last victory, it went all the way down to the last game in a best of 5, and in the very, very last fight, his rank 4 hood beat my Hulkling and ended up winning the match for him. And this was the, quote unquote post nerf hood and everything. And I talked to him as well, and they were both like, listen, man, like, I never played hood with my end game being permanent invisibility. Like, I knew it was there. It was something that if it lined up, or like sometimes by accident it just happened. But I will tell you, I will absolutely make the trade of having the dash back actually work as it's written and be reliable versus this permanent invisibility. And we're still seeing hood absolutely destroy mini bosses in Alliance War, be one of the most important attackers in so many metas for Battlegrounds. And then, the other thing no one's talking about is that Civil Warrior, who was one of the clunkiest champions, is way better now. It's way easier to keep those Furies up. And then additionally, Crossbones, who is a super meta Battlegrounds champion as well, is a lot better. You don't have to do that double clutch with him either. So, I just think this community has a way of focusing on the negative and just completely having blinders on for the fact that this bug fix was actually pro player. And, I just don't think that there was like, any kind of shady things going on here. I really think that they went in, they fixed this bug. Part of the bug was this permanent invisible that wasn't supposed to be there. And you know what, like, this is a live server game. Like, let's come to some conclusions here, right? Marvel Contest of Champions is a live server game. It's not, just because you spend time and you spend money on the game, you're not really a shareholder in the game, right? So they technically have the ability to change anything. Like, the game could shut off tomorrow and they don't owe you anything, right? Additionally, they could change any character at any point. But the thing is, like, I really do think if you look at the big picture, they have been very good stewards of the champions. Like, look at the balance program this year. No one has been nerfed at all, like, except for the Wiccan, that one play style that, again, like, nobody was actually using in a real scenario. They just sort of got rid of that exploit, but we've seen buffs to champs like America Chavez and Iron Man Infinity War from previous years, and then Gore is getting a huge buff. So the only 2022 champion to get changed was Gore, and he's getting like a pretty massive buff of like 50% uptime of his buffs, and his SIG ability at SIG 1 is higher than his SIG ability at SIG 200, right? So my point is, like, overall, Kabam is being a very good steward of their champions. But you just have to remember it's a live server game, so things can change, and they technically don't owe you anything, right? The fact that they have the patch notes and they try to be as transparent as possible on this multi-headed monster that is the game is good, and like, sometimes you just have to cut them slack, right? Because like I said, I talked to so many good hood players, and the bottom line is, like, he's better now. And this old way of playing him, which might have been more necessary because the dashback was bugged, is no longer there. But there are still a million ways to play him and be like really involved in the match and still come out winning. So that's kind of all I have to say about this. And I would just caution anybody from, spreading news that's overly negative or trying to spin stories into things that they're not, because most of the time things like that are overblown. And also creating anger in the community, it's not going to lead to any good, right? If you're really upset about this game, if this game drives you crazy, you don't have to play the game, right? At the end of the day, it's a game. Things are going to change. And you know what, like, you really have to look at the big picture of like where we are as a game. The fact that, we're getting so many great champions this year, that Hood really, honestly, instead of getting a silent nerf, he actually got an unsilent buff, and he's just a little bit different now. And, you know, like take JMX as an example. Like he brought up very respectfully his opinion. Kabam was pretty clear that, you know, this was a knock-on effect because of the code and that it wasn't the intention that you could do that. And he's moving forward in a way where he's going to continue to educate people about Hood on his channel in this new form. And I just think that's a great example of, like, you know, just taking the information that we have and moving forward with it. So that's my take on the whole thing. I'm probably going to rank for my Hood within the next month, because I do think this is a solid enough improvement to him that he's even better than before. And again, just, you know, in this holiday season, be kind to each other, try to not focus on the negativity, and, you know, just make sure you have all the information before you start talking to people about things that, you know, may not be as overblown as you think they are. That's kind of all I have to say about this. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed my opinion on this. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. And with that, I will catch you in the next video. Have a great day.